Hello, my name's Andrew, and I'm reading Alice's Adventures in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll. This is Chapter 9, Who Stole the Tarts? The King and Queen of Hearts were seated on their throne when they arrived, with a great crowd assembled about them, all sorts of little birds and beasts, as well as the whole pack of cards. The knave was standing before them, in chains, with a soldier to each side to guard him, and near the king was the white rabbit, with a trumpet in one hand and a scroll of parchment in the other. In the very middle of the court was a table with a large dish of tarts upon it. I wish they'd get the trial done, Alice thought, and hand round the refreshments. The judge, by the way, was the king, and he wore the crown over his great wig. That's the jury box, thought Alice, and those 12 creatures, some were animals and some were birds, I suppose they are the jurors. Just then the white rabbit cried out, "Silence in court!" "Herald, read the accusation," said the king. Should I do a kingly voice for that, do you reckon? What do kings sound like? "Herald, read the accusation," something like that. On this, the white rabbit blew 3 blasts on the trumpet and then unrolled the parchment scroll and read as follows. The Queen of Hearts, she made some tarts, all on a summer's day. The Knave of Hearts, he stole those tarts, and took them quite away. "Call the first witness," said the king, and the white rabbit blew 3 blasts on the trumpet, and called out, "First witness." The first witness was the Hatter. He came in with a teacup in one hand, and a piece of bread and butter in the other. "You ought to have finished," said the king. "When did you begin?" The Hatter looked at the March Hare, who had followed him into the court, arm in arm with the Dormouse. 14th of March, I think it was," he said. "Give your evidence," said the king, "and don't be nervous, or I'll have you executed on the spot." This did not seem to encourage the witness at all. He kept shifting from one foot to the other, looking uneasily at the queen, and in his confusion he bit a large piece out of his teacup instead of the bread and butter. Just at this moment, Alice felt a very curious sensation. She was beginning to grow larger again. The miserable Hatter dropped his teacup and bread and butter and went down on his knee. "I'm a poor man, your majesty," he began. "You're a very poor speaker," said the king. "You may go," said the king, and the Hatter hurriedly left the court. "Call the next witness," said the king. The next witness was the Duchess's cook. She carried the pepper box in her hand, and the people near the door began sneezing all at once. "Give your evidence," said the king. "Shan't," said the cook. The king looked anxiously at the white rabbit, who in a low voice said, "Your majesty must cross-examine this witness." "Well, if I must, I must," the king said. "What are tarts made of?" "Pepper, mostly," said the cook. For some minutes the whole court was in confusion, and by the time they had settled down again, the cook had disappeared. "Never mind," said the king. "Call the next witness." Alice watched the white rabbit as he fumbled over the list. Imagine her surprise when he read out at the top of his shrill little voice the name Alice. Chapter 10. Alice's Evidence. "Here!" cried Alice. She jumped up in such a hurry that she tipped over the jury box, upsetting all the jurymen onto their heads with the crowd below. "Oh, I beg your pardon," she exclaimed in a tone of great dismay. "The trial cannot proceed," said the king, "until all the jurymen are back in their proper places. All!" he repeated with great emphasis, looking hard at Alice. "What do you know about this business?" the king said to Alice. "Nothing whatever," said Alice. The king then read from his book. "Rule 42. All persons more than a mile high to leave the court." "I'm not a mile high," said Alice. "Nearly 2 miles high," said the queen. "Well, I shan't go at any rate," said Alice. The king turned pale and shut his notebook hastily. "Consider your verdict," he said to the jury in a low, trembling "Consider your verdict," he said to the jury in a low, trembling voice. There's more evidence to come yet, please your majesty, said the White Rabbit, jumping up in a great hurry. This paper has just been picked up. It seems to be a letter written by the prisoner to somebody. He unfolded the paper as he spoke and added, Oh, it isn't a letter after all, it's a set of verses. Please your majesty, said the knave, I didn't write it, and they can't prove that I did. There's no name signed at the end. You must have meant some mischief, or else you'd have signed your name like an honest man. Oh, sorry, this is the king. You must have meant some mischief, or you'd have signed your name like an honest man, said the king. There was a general clapping of hands at this. Read them, he added, turning to the White Rabbit. There was dead silence in the court while the White Rabbit read out the verses. I'll say that again. There was dead silence in the court while the White Rabbit read out the verses. That's the most important piece of evidence we've heard yet, said the king. I don't believe there's an atom of meaning in it, ventured Alice. If there's no meaning in it, said the king, that saves a world of trouble, as we needn't to find any. Let the jury consider their verdict. No, no, said the queen. Sentence first, verdict afterwards. Oh, stuff and nonsense, said Alice loudly. The idea of having the sentence first. Hold your tongue, said the queen, turning purple. I won't, said Alice. Off with her head, the queen shouted at the top of her voice. Nobody moved. Who cares for you, said Alice. She had grown to her full size by this time. You're nothing but a pack of cards. At this, the whole pack rose up in the air and came flying down upon her. She gave a little scream, half of fright and half of anger, and tried to beat them off, and found herself lying on the bank with her head in the lap of her sister, who was gently brushing away some dead leaves that had fluttered down from the trees upon her face. Wake up, dear Alice, said her sister. Why, what a long sleep you've had. Oh, I had such a curious dream, said Alice. She told her sister, as well as she could remember them, all these strange adventures of hers that you have just been reading about. Alice got up and ran off. While thinking, she ran as well she might. What a wonderful dream it had been. Done. What do you reckon? Good story? I think so. Thanks for listening to it. I might read another one soon. Give me a thumbs up if you like that. And maybe I'll see you later. Bye-bye.